It's time for 41 is the Mic, a weekly Chiefs podcast with Nick Jacobs of KSHB 41 and Matt Derrick of Chiefs Digest. 41 is the Mic starts now.
Welcome, everyone, to a Divisional Round victory edition of 41 is the Mic. I am Matt Derrick from Chiefs Digest, alongside Chiefs Fecta enthusiast Nick Jacobs from KSHB 41. Nick, Chiefs just keep on rolling in the AFC Championship game, once again coming to Arrowhead Stadium after a one-year absence.
Yeah, I mean, hey, they did what they had to do to get there. If you listen to the Houston Texans locker room, they think that they should be the ones going home with a victory right now, and they blame the officiating for it. So that's going to be a popular topic. I will say I was really, really disappointed in the ESPN broadcast and just how Joe Buck and Troy Aikman, just kind of how they really kind of pushed that opinion further and were fixated on it on a lot of replays. Whenever, I mean, there was calls missed both ways, and there always is in NFL games. It's just right now the Chiefs are on nationally all the time, so everything gets magnified. We'll watch some games on Sunday. There will be some calls there. There will be some calls, all over the place in the game that should be called for both teams. It's just a matter of who overcomes it and who allows it to sink their ship. And for the Houston Texans, they don't have enough on their roster offensively right now to not let it kind of, cause an avalanche and cause some issues for them.
Yeah, there was a pool report done with the officials after the game from the Houston side of things because they wanted to ask about the roughing the passer call with the face mask hitting, and then also on the call on unnecessary roughness when Mahomes slid to the ground. And the answer from the officials was, essentially the same thing in both cases, that there was contact in both situations, and it was contact that's not allowed. You had a helmet to helmet, face mask to face mask contact on the first pass interference. On the slide, you had was initially called a hairline contact of the helmets, but then then changed to the one of my I'm blanking on the look on the word. I don't have this in front of me. Forehead contact, I think it was eventually changed to in what the official was saying. But I mean, it was helmet to helmet contact. I get that the Texans felt like that on the slide that their two guys ran into each other, but one of them did make helmet to helmet contact with Mahomes while he was sliding on the ground. Both of those are, legitimate calls. You could argue, I feel, that, hey, whether or not it's appropriate for the officials to be calling that in that situation. I mean, I get it if you wanted to say that, there are degrees of these kind of things. But then again, I once saw, Chris Jones get called for roughing the passer when he hit Tom Brady in the shoulder with his hand and completely missed his head, but the officials called that roughing the passer. So I get that there's varying degrees, but those were actually, both of those calls tonight were legitimate calls. I mean, like I said, you could debate about the severity of them, but they were legit.
That's not how the picture is going to be painted for the next week. So you just might as well buckle in and ignore the noise, because that's all you're gonna hear about from a national perspective, from a lot of people, from people who don't like the Chiefs. Because the Chiefs, I mean, they are the villains of the NFL. It started last year and is 100% that now. And I mean, what New England Patriots fans went through for the longest time, what Belichick, Brady, and every single person a part of the Patriots organization dealt with, the Chiefs are dealing with it right now. And the reason they're dealing with it is because people have to tear down why the Chiefs are able to do what they're doing and justify why their team can't and the Chiefs can. That is what is at the heart of the matter in the entire thing. That is the reality, because they don't want to believe that there's an organization or a team out there that is just simply a little bit above what their team is right now and how the roster is built and how they execute, how they handle high-pressure situations, and all that type of stuff. And people are going to use the word lucky. They're going to use the officials involved in it. And you are going to hear this team continually just get torn apart by national people and by fan bases because of those reasons. They do not want to see the Chiefs win. And if the Chiefs are able to complete the Chiefecta, then you are going to hear about it relentlessly. And the Chiefs will deal with it constantly next year. And every single person will take joy in any loss the Chiefs have because they will feel like, quote unquote, the empire is finally crumbling so they can have hope again. It's like, I still go buy a lottery ticket every week. Probably not going to win, but I still buy a lottery ticket to give myself a chance. But do I get bummed when somebody in California seems to win the Powerball or Mega Millions when it hits $1 billion every time? You bet. But I don't let it impact me in the way that some other fan bases seem to. I know there's 2 different correlations and everything, but hey, it is what it is.
Clearly, Nick, if you're not winning the lottery, it's the lottery officials' fault. The fix is in against you.
I don't think it is, but I am helping with somebody else's 401k.
Well, this game started out, it wasn't a fantastic first half for the Chiefs. They got a couple of key stops when they needed it, but, I think inevitably after watching that first half, we're going to have the debate, Nick, rest versus rust. Was it worth for the Chiefs to have as much rest as they did, or did they come out a little bit rusty in the first half?
I didn't think they were very crisp there early on, especially that opening play calling drive after Nico Remigio had the big return that put him in business there, and then the Texans player Boyd took off his helmet and gave him an additional opportunity if they wanted it. And the Chiefs play calling inside the 15 there, I was kind of surprised by. And it seemed like maybe it's just me, it seemed like they're a little surprised with what the Texans were throwing at them and some of their coverages and everything. And they just weren't able to kind of impose their will early on there in that football game, in the run game, and also on pass protection. So the Texans, they had some stuff out there for the Chiefs and everything. And, the Chiefs looked a little amped up there early on. Mahomes was missing a little bit on some throws. Pass protection didn't really look in sync there early on. And it took a while for them to kind of get rebooted. And I don't feel like the Chiefs kind of found their footing until, 4 minutes left in the third quarter, since there was that 10-minute drive. And I felt like third quarter to fourth quarter there is really when the Chiefs kind of started to become who they were during that Pittsburgh Steelers game, more so than they had the rest of the game.
Yeah, I know from talking to some of the players after the game in the locker room, I know I had Charles and Minihue particularly just flat out say rust is a myth. It's the playoffs. They know what's at stake. They knew that they were going to have to elevate their game. But there was also, to me at least, a convincing element in the first half that the rest paid off, because who had the best half of anybody? It was Travis Kelce.
Yeah.
Let's face it. Let's lean into all the jokes. He looked 22 out there, Nick. This was playoff Travis at his best today.
It was where Travis Kelce is at when he's healthy at this point in his career, yes. Now, did he have the same explosiveness and the same shakeability he did 2 years ago? No. That explosiveness that he had 2 years ago, that's unfortunately not. Doesn't look like that's going to be returning, even with almost 3 weeks of rest and everything. And that's not a knock on him. That's just time catching up with him. And so he gave everything he had out there, and that's what a fresh Travis Kelce looks like at this age right now. And he was a huge difference maker for the Chiefs team, obviously, with the 7 catches, 117 yards, and 1 touchdown. So, Kelce did what he had to try to help his team get to the AFC Championship and in their hopeful quest to get back to the Super Bowl. So that rest paid off for him, definitely. I feel like it paid off for Chris Jones. Mahomes obviously looked better out there when he was running. Didn't have that same, ankle issue that he'd had a couple weeks before. But Mahomes looked out of rhythm, and part of that's going to be because of pass protection, and then part of that was he was just missing early in some spots. That shows some of that time off kind of took a little bit away from where he was kind of at slinging the football earlier.
And that is interesting to me because, that Texans matchup that the Chiefs had in Week 16 almost a month ago, I mean, that was the first game that Mahomes had with the ankle injury, and we were wondering whether he was even going to play that week.
Yeah.
Ends up having a really good outing, and obviously then followed up with a really good game against the Steelers as well. But that game against, at that time in Week 16, I mean, even Andy Reid said he thought that was maybe the most complete game that the team had played, and offensively, it was a really good game. My question going into this one was, were we going to see a Texans defense similar to one that we saw in Week 16, or were we going to see one that was similar to what faced the Chargers last week? They looked a lot more like the team that played the Chargers last week than the Week 16 defense.
Yeah, and I mean, when they got their linebacker back that had been suspended and went in the last Chiefs game, and then obviously having Autry out there, and then Mario Edwards was a part of the mix. Like they had a better overall D-line pressure, and as Mitchell Schwartz pointed out, kind of the attack they were using, similar to what the Niners used, to where they were overloading one side and then looked like they're trying to put Will Anderson kind of a wide 9 to rush Joe Thuney at a certain angle. I think they were trying to really kind of force Mahomes to feel like he had to stay in the pocket, collapse it in on him, and then kind of force him to maneuver up into the pocket at times was what they were trying to do. And then I'm interested to watch the coaches film to see what they were doing zone coverage-wise and how much man they were using. I know Mahomes said they had the 2 shell over top a lot of the time, or shell coverage as he called it. So I think they had, just from watching on the broadcast, I think the Texans, adjustment-wise, were like, okay, we're going to rush this way. We think we can really get an advantage on Joe Thuney one-on-one, keep him contained in there, force him to move up in the pocket, and really kind of cross the faces of some of these offensive linemen and make them uncomfortable, make Mahomes uncomfortable, and the receivers won't have enough time to get into the windows because Mahomes is going to have to maneuver around and drop his eyes. So with the Chiefs not being able to sustain the run game as much as you would want for the most part, and then what I think they were trying to do with really tighten the windows for Chiefs passing offense, those things combined, I think, had a lot to do with why the Chiefs offense really couldn't find rhythm other than a couple drives here and there.
And that was one of the things that surprised me, because with the Chiefs going with Joe Thuney at left tackle, you felt that a big reason for that was the comfort of Mahomes, that he looked much more comfortable in the last few games with Joe Thuney at left tackle. And that's why you go, that maybe it gives Mahomes the confidence that he doesn't have to worry about the protection. He can keep his eyes downfield and make the quick decisions, make the quick throws that he had been making. I didn't see a lot of that today. I mean, it felt like he was going back to being worried about the pressure a little bit and maybe not watching downfield as much. I know there was a couple of probably wide open plays that he missed that I felt like he probably would have hit the last couple of weeks, Nick. And, is this a legitimate question to open it back up again about who should be the left tackle, about whether it's worth giving DJ Humphries another shot and putting Joe Thuney where he's best at left guard? Or do you feel like that's even something the Chiefs should broach?
It's something they have to entertain next week because the Super Bowl is on the line. So, I mean, that's something during the week here that they're going to have to really decide, because they need that run game to be a lot more effective against, whether it's the Ravens or Bills, it doesn't matter, but they're going to need it to be a lot more effective next week. And that run game's really struggle without Joe Thuney at left guard. So, they need that. And if DJ Humphries is healthy enough and can play tackle, you got to throw that curveball at the Bills and Ravens next week, which may have been what the Chiefs were wanting to do to begin with. Give, DJ Humphries another week of kind of practicing and getting into that rhythm, and then have the AFC Championship game to where the team doesn't really have tape on DJ blocking for Mahomes other than the Chargers game. And then now you can kind of throw that curveball at a lot of teams, and teams are banking on going against Caliendo. And then when they find out, oh, that's Joe Thuney there, So then, they could either put the Bills or Ravens off kilter, depending on who ends up winning that game. So if I'm the Chiefs, all week long, I play it as, we're going to do some rotation. We were happy with what we saw last week, and, we're just going to continue to move forward. And then, boom, on AFC Championship night, you have a new offensive line out there that they may not have been able to put the same level of prep work into, and are kind of unsure with they were going to attack Joe Thuney the same way that the Texans did, but there's DJ Humphries out there now.
The other thing in the first half that kind of stuck out to me was that the Chiefs defense, I mean, they only give up the 6 points, but there were some signs of weakness. I mean, the Texans were 4 of 8 on third down, including a couple of really big third down backbreakers, which was really what broke open that game against the Chargers last week, where they were able to convert some really big third down plays.
Yeah.
They rushed for 95 yards in the first half, and then obviously they had the long sustained drive to open up the third quarter. But after that, Nick, I mean, the Chiefs defense, especially in the fourth quarter, just went back into shutdown mode. I mean, they gave up just 61 yards in the fourth quarter. Obviously had the big stops. Other than obviously the front four maybe playing their best game of the season, especially in the second half, what did it for this defense to get things going in the second half?
At one point, Steve Spagnuolo just finally started blitzing. Like that was you take CJ Stroud out of rhythm once he started blitzing him. And right now he didn't have the weapons that he needed to out there. So here's the first thing I'm going to say, and it got challenged on Twitter, and that's completely fine, but I'm still going to say it. I've watched enough coaches film throughout the year to know that CJ Stroud gets into a little bit of a panic mode when he can't go to Nico Collins when trouble is brewing. So if there's a blitz coming, or if it's a gotta have it moment, he's trying to get the ball to Nico Collins. So what the Chiefs did in the previous game is they doubled him a handful of times, and guess what? When CJ Stroud either had a blitz coming at him or got into a problem, he threw into double coverage, and the Chiefs picked off both of those with McDuffie and with Jaden Hicks. And that wasn't by accident. That was they knew what to do to give themselves those opportunities. And then so when the Chiefs went up against it today, they had Trent McDuffie on Nico Collins a handful of times. I put out the stats from Next Gen on it. And so they were able to do that part of it. And then the times whenever the Texans were able to kind of get Nico over the middle there and some of those third down plays and convert them and everything right over the middle whenever the voids were available there, that's whenever they did some of their best work overall, was during that portion of it. And then that third quarter, whenever they had the 10-minute drive and took 10 minutes off the clock the way that they did to really try to tire out that Chiefs defense. I was concerned for that Chiefs defense. I'm like, man, that Chiefs offense better at least stay out there for 5 to 6 minutes just so they get enough from the oxygen tank or whatever they need to. Because if you don't, if they go out there after a 3 and out, like there was going to be some problems there, especially in that cold of weather and trying to be able to breathe in that type of cold. Like that was going to cause some problems for them in my book. Luckily, the Chiefs offense was able to deliver, and the Chiefs defense was able to really kind of regroup from that and really have some strong showings and performances there to kind of really hold the fort, especially there in the fourth quarter, and really kind of take over with as many sacks as they had there in the fourth quarter alone.
Yeah, I mean, a couple of really remarkable drives to start the second half, because the Texans, the net yards, 15 plays, 82 net. They also had 19 penalty yards. So the Texans gained 101 yards on that 15-play, 10-minute, and 24-second possession that ended with the touchdown. Mm-hmm. And you're right. I mean, that could have been a momentum turn in that game if the Chiefs don't come out and have a sustained drive themselves and give their defense a break. And what does Patric Mahomes do? 13 plays, 75 yards. They go get the touchdown in 7 minutes, 44 seconds. And that was, not just an equalizer. Obviously that pushed out the lead back up because and the Texans missed the extra point on that touchdown. That I think was also kind of a momentum switch there. Chiefs get the touchdown to extend the lead. And it was over after that. The Texans had some chances to try and close it, but never really got close back into that ballgame again.
Yeah, that Mahomes to Kelce touchdown, I felt like that was when I was like, all right, they've finally started to get the separation that they needed to at 20-12 at that point. And then I was really hoping they get another touchdown there. Unfortunately, they weren't able to and had to settle for the Bucker field goal, because if they got the touchdown there, then I think that really would have taken the wind out of the Texans' sail. And that 4th and 10 by the Texans was so dumb. Like, I get it and everything, but, man, punt the ball, put the Chiefs deep in their own territory, and really make them work and kind of get yourself back to midfield again. At least give yourself that possibility. And instead, that 4th and 10, they go and do that. The Chiefs really could have put the dagger in them at that point, and I was personally hoping that they would, but it took a little bit longer. But, like, yeah, it ended up being the Karlaftis sack on 3rd down, obviously, and then the field goal block by Leo Chanel. So, I mean, George Karlaftis had himself a day. To have the 3 sacks that he did, to be the difference maker he made himself some money in a key moment, and he could really expand and build off that down the road here. But I also recognize and know that Charles Omenihu and Chris Jones also helped play a part in that, and Tershawn Wharton. But George did take advantage of his one-on-ones. Now he needs to build off that. And heck, even Felix Ndike-Uzama had a big run stuff and had a sack as well. So, I mean, you know, Chiefs defensive line, they were feasting there in that 4th quarter in what I call the money quarter, and some of the money downs that they were able to do that against.
Yeah, I mean, arguably best game of his Chiefs career for George Karlaftis.
Yeah, in terms of the key situations and how big the moments were and what was at stake in those moments, yeah, it was one of the biggest and best of his career.
I do have to obsess a little bit about that throw that Patric Mahomes had to Travis Kelce, just for the Travis Kelce for that touchdown, because, oh my goodness, Nick, I mean, okay, there's going to be a highlight reel when Patric Mahomes and Travis Kelce and all these guys go into the Hall of Fame. You're going to see that one. I mean, yep. that one's earmarked by NFL Films. You're going to see that one a lot. I'm sure we'll probably see it just as much as we've seen the Joe Burrow falling down touchdown, except Joe Burrow's wasn't in the divisional round playoff game in the 4th quarter.
Right.
I mean,
yeah.
I was just laughing hysterically in the press box, because it's just like, I mean, that's so Patric Mahomes.
Oh, and so I'll say that, like, yeah, that's a legendary moment. That's one of those iconic moments in time, like you said, NFL thing that you'll remember. Just like I'll remember that throw Mahomes had to Marquez Valdes-Scantling when he had to jump off his ankle and everything, and toss that one that you thought might get picked or intercepted. And no, Valdes-Scantling came up with it for the touchdown. Like, that was another big moment. I can't remember if that was Jaguars or Bengals, but it was one of the. But there's 2 similar moments in there that I'm thinking of with that. And yeah, that was a legendary moment. George's 3rd down sack was such a big moment. And then Leo having that field goal block was such a big moment. And here's the thing that nobody talks about. For as much as everyone wants to complain about officiating, Justin Reed is getting hooked on that play. And that's a hold. And that didn't get called. And the Chiefs had so many players, and this is what I'm talking about. This is the ultimate microcosm of why blaming officiating is dumb sometimes. So in that moment, Justin Reed's, the penalty's occurring, he's getting held, but there are still 3 Chiefs that put themselves in position to still make the play behind them. So each one's picking up another to where each one puts themselves in the right spot. So Leo Chanel has a potential block there. Mike Pennell, depending if it goes a different way, potentially has it. And then Justin Reed still almost had it even after he's getting hooked. That's will, that's desire, and that is relentlessness. And that's why the Chiefs were able to close out in the 4th quarter, is because of that. So the Chiefs, even, you know, if the Chiefs hypothetically had lost that game, you're not hearing them talk about how they got hooked on that play, you know, on that field goal. So like they would have been like, hey, there was a lot of opportunities, didn't make it happen. It just happens that way sometimes, or something along those lines. But at the end of the day, like, they had a guy helping, you know, they had each guy trying to perform the role and try to accomplish the task. And there was enough of them collectively rowing in the same direction to make it happen. And that's kind of the play that I felt like really kind of signified what this Chiefs team has been, and why when people want to use the term lucky and all that stuff and everything, what they really don't seem to understand is that there's a lot of players on that roster unified that are all trying to make the difference and all try to collectively put themselves in good position to whichever way the ball bounces.
Yeah, and special teams in particular today. I mean, it's been up and down season again for special teams. This was a big up,
Yeah,
and Dave Tope deserves a ton of credit because
100%.
he absolutely got inside the mind of Chaim Fairbairn because with the motion that they did on some of those field goal blocks, I think that absolutely got into his head. And I mean, I did not think that based on what I saw from and during pregame warmups from both kickers and with the winds at Arrowhead today, those it was swirling and at a speed that I just haven't seen very often. I mean, Harrison Butker, said, "Hey, it's probably about on par." I mean, he said it was amongst, kind of up there with the worst, but he's like, "I've kicked in the worst before, so it didn't really bother me." I was surprised that Tommy Townsend didn't seem to, handle it as well, considering he's kicked here quite a bit, obviously. But the Texans decided to go for that 55-yard. When they were lining up for that 55-yard field goal, I was like, "There's no way they're making this kick, not today, and not with that wind, and with the motion that, like I said, that Dave Tobe did a couple of times. I think that affected Fairbairn's mindset. I think he was a little freaked out about, wait, where's Justin Reed coming from, and where do I have to worry about the angle here? And Leo Chanel said that that field goal block that they had on that got the kick was the exact same field goal block that they had for the Broncos.
I could tell the way it was angled. I was like, that was exactly different.
I mean, it was you could tell. I mean, and it obviously played out the exact same way with the block. So, I mean, the only blemish was unfortunately Nico Remigio's fumble at the end of that electrifying return. But Samaje Perine keeps a hold of it. I believe that if I read that correctly, 7 straight games for the Chiefs without a turnover now. I mean,
yeah, it's pretty close to it.
It's been quite the little stretch. I have only one real quibble with this offensive execution today, Nick.
The floor is yours, Matt. Start dancing.
And I'm just going to throw up the topic to you to see what you can if you can convince me that I'm wrong and I'm crazy and everything like this. I do not get the distribution of carries between Isaiah Pacheco and Kareem Hunt, because Kareem was just simply more efficient today. He's driven. I just did not understand why the Kareem Hunt was not getting the bulk of the touches today.
You don't have any theories on it?
Maybe. I mean, hey, does Andy Reid have a bet with somebody that he can, he can win playoff games with Isaiah Pacheco getting more touches? I'm kidding, people. Do not take that seriously. But
part of me kind of thinks that there was just a certain pitch count they were going to leave Kareem on.
It's the only thing I can think of too.
Unless they're got to break glass in case of emergency moment when they really needed to. Because I think at the end of the day, this is me, but I think they had a good pulse of where they were at by the time that into third quarter and early fourth quarter rolled around. And I don't think they were going to use Kareem until they had to, because I think there was certain things they were wanting to do wear and tear wise to that defense so that he could be the battering ram there in the third or fourth quarter if they needed him to be, and really physically be able to kind of run over those guys after they've been running around the cold and taking on hits for as long as they had and kind of wear them down. So I think that was a piece of the puzzle. But also, if I'm in the Chiefs coaching staff's shoes, next week is when you're going to need them relentlessly. No matter which team you're playing, like next week's the week you need that run game to be on point. So work your way back in this week if you need to with him and Pacheco. But next week you ride with 29, and good things are going to happen. So, but that's also because you're going to have to figure out some things at left guard and left tackle in the AFC Championship game. But next week you can't, as a Dan Fouts and Brent Musburger would say on the Water Boy, potentially last game of the year. You can't hold anything back now. So yeah, I think next week's the week where anything you got play wise, use it. Anything that can set you over the top, you're gonna need, because you're there. You're right on the doorstep of getting to the playing in the Super Bowl and really being at the moment to truly get that third consecutive Super Bowl. So playtime's over. like now's the time, and you're gonna have to crank it up to a level that you haven't done all season long yet.
We almost had, and now we are going to have two Adam Sandler references, because I was going to ask if Travis Kelce, after catching that touchdown pass and then looking down at the defender that slid down to the ground, be like, that's a shame you went to the ground on that play. Did Travis then ride the bull just like Happy Gilmore on his celebration?
I don't remember.
It looked like it.
I remember there was some gyrating. Don't remember there being like a golf club to be able to use as a prop, though.
Didn't have a golf club as a prop, but I thought he might have been riding the bull.
Maybe.
All right. We know, Nick, that after this one, after the 23-14 win over the Texans, Chiefs are playing in the AFC Championship game. We know it'll be at Arrowhead next weekend, 5:30 Central Time on Sunday. Who are they going to play?
This is, for me, this is one of the hardest games I've wrestled back and forth with trying to predict. Like this has been one of the tougher ones in quite some time, to where I'm really, and the snow's playing a big factor in it for me, because I'm just curious to see how snowy it is, who adapts better to it. Because like I think Josh Allen's going to be the better quarterback on the field, but I'm like, okay, can that Bills defense hold up against the Ravens run even in the snow? And like I just don't know if Lamar is going to be able to kind of be, I think some of his, depending on how the snow is, I think that's going to take away a little bit of his effectiveness as a runner. And that's going to take, Henry having to start up a little bit more than what he normally would, need a little bit more runway to be able to kind of get up to top end speed. So I ended up picking the Ravens earlier today, and it wouldn't stun me if they win, but it's not going to stun me if the Bills win either. Like I'm not going to be shocked or stunned either way on it, because it's going to make sense. It's just a matter of which team's, style of fighting can, deliver more connections in those key moments, and how much can Lamar or Josh handle the pressure, because they both got good offensive coordinators. So, I mean, like, I think Joe Brady's doing a good job. I think Todd Monken's doing a good job. And, like, I'm just intrigued to see which team can exploit the other team's defense more. Because, I mean, you look at the Ravens secondary, yes, they're better at certain points. And Dean Pease was the difference in the Ravens. There's two guys, like we've talked about it before, but George Warhop, the O-line coach for the Ravens, has really put that O-line cohesiveness together since he took over there in late August after the death of their O-line coach. And then Dean Pease coming in there and really kind of helping advise Zachary Orr, like that really kind of helps stabilize that defense. And if those guys aren't there, the Ravens aren't in this moment right now. I genuinely don't believe the Ravens are in this moment without those two coaches being there to really kind of help stabilize everything.
Yeah, I have felt that this is a game that I've been going with the Ravens all along, but my confidence is 51%. I mean, I feel like this is an absolute coin toss of a game. I'm not even sure who the Chiefs really want to face. I mean, I think that there was a sense in the locker room that the Chiefs might want Baltimore, excuse me, because I think that they're tired a little bit of the talk about Isaiah Likely and the touchdown in week 1. It wasn't a touchdown because of being out of bounds. I think that there's a little bit of just wanting to prove that last year in Baltimore wasn't a fluke. But I also think that there's some wanting to pay back Buffalo for the regular season loss. And obviously they have a history with both these teams. So I don't know if there's a real wish either way. I think it's going to be a tough game regardless. Although I will say if it turns into a snow game, I think it slides to Buffalo's favor. I mean, they are the snow team in the snow city. So if it becomes a snow game, I think it helps out Buffalo. But I think what Chiefs fans and the Chiefs would love most of all, though, is an absolutely physical overtime game that just absolutely brutalizes both of these teams.
And the other thing we can kind of talk about in advance and get ahead of is the Chiefs are going to get a full day's rest over either team.
Exactly.
A true 24 hours a full 24 hours because they're not even playing until 5:30 on Sunday. And the Chiefs were done by, oh man, they were done before 6:30. I know that.
Yeah.
So, I mean, technically maybe 23 hours, whatever. Well, because the game's they're not going to be done until 8:30 or 9. So, yeah, so you get more than, you almost get 27 hours of additional rest. So, yeah, I mean, I'm looking forward to the game, watching the Ravens Bills. I think it's going to be entertaining. I did not expect Commanders Lions to be what it was, but it was fantastic to watch too. And that's awesome for Washington fan base to kind of have that moment. I'm bummed for the Detroit fans. I were hoping they were going to get a big moment, and I'm bummed for a lot of Lions fans because they deserved it. And then it'll be interesting to see what happens with the Eagles and Rams as well.
I mean, hey, there's still a lot to happen, but man, Nick, you know that the NFL is potentially drooling of the idea of Jaden Daniels against Patric Mahomes or Josh Allen or Lamar Jackson. That would be a easily to promote Super Bowl.
100%. Yeah, I think they need somebody on the NFC side to be able to be consistently marketable at quarterback, and if he can do that for them, then they will be beyond ecstatic.
Yeah, and Chiefs are going to face the Commanders next year regardless, so that's going to be a fun game to mark on your calendars, and it will be at Arrowhead. So,
yeah, I'm just going to worry about the AFC Championship first. Go from there.
just worry about one thing at a time, And I bring this up because it fits in exactly with what you've kind of been saying all along, Nick. I talked to DeAndre Hopkins after the game about the fact this was the first NFL game he's ever played in that he did not get a reception. 184 straight between regular season and the playoffs. He'd had a catch in every single game he's played. And I knew that the streak was important to him. And obviously he still has his regular season streak alive. But when I mentioned to him that, the streak came to an end and he was like, you know what? I didn't even think about it. He's like, all I was thinking about is the fact that I'm in an AFC Championship game for the first time in my career. 100%. And he's like, that matters more than the streak. And so, I mean, that says a lot right there. And the Chiefs have some absolutely motivated players. If you even think that Patric Mahomes and Travis Kelce are motivated as the competitors that they are, and the fact that they're going for 3, I tell you what, some of the guys that are going for their first one are just as motivated, if not more so, because DeAndre Hopkins and Kareem Hunt, they want that ring badly.
Yes. I know those guys want it. Kareem really wants it. That's why I'm saying you feed him next week relentlessly, and you let him be your bell cow at certain points during that game if you can. And that's why you want to have a better overall offense because you're going to need it next week. But then on top of that, man, like you said, with DeAndre Hopkins, with Xavier Worthy, and I'm trying to think, Minihue is going to want to be able to play that entire game since I know he
wants it badly too.
Since he didn't feel, he was a huge part, more so than I think he wants to give himself credit for. But I know he wants to have those key moments in that AFC Championship game, and I know he was bummed last year from listening to his interviews about not being able to play in that Super Bowl. So I know he's gonna want that. I know he's gonna want that bad. And then
he might be one of those guys that wants to play the Ravens a bit more than the Buffalo Bills. So
wouldn't stun me, but I don't. If he gets to play the whole game, I think he's not. You know what I'm saying? At the end of the day, I don't think he's going to be bummed. I don't think a lot of those guys are going to be bummed if they get to kind of have that moment. And I'm trying to think, DJ Humphries is going to want to, he's going to want to be able to participate in that and be a part of that. Then there's so many guys that if I keep looking at a roster, I'm going to be like, no, that one's going to make sense. That one makes sense too. But at the end of the day, man, I just think this football team, I just hope that it's right there, and I just hope they're able to kind of really lock in a way next week, and whatever cobwebs or whatever whatever they needed to get back into this rhythm, that this game helped them really kind of be able to relock in on what's at stake next week, because it doesn't matter which team they play, it's going to be a tough physical football game. And it's going to take a level of execution that the Chiefs may have not even had to tap into yet this year, but they're definitely going to have to. So, yeah, like next week, AFC Championship is going to be tough, man. It's going to be tough.
100%. And it is going to be a busy week this week. We'll hear from Andy Reid on Monday and on the Zoom. Tuesday, live Q&A with Chiefs Digest, where you can all bring your questions, and Nick and I will hammer away at them as best we can. And then Wednesday, Thursday, Friday, it will be a busy day. Chiefs move, because of just the size and the complexity of everything, they move everything over to Arrowhead Stadium. So there'll be a full day of players and coaches at the podiums. Wednesday, Thursday, and Friday. So you'll probably hear a lot more from Chiefs players this coming week than you normally do. Yep. There will also be some interviews from the locker rooms and over in the facility as well. So it's a busy week, a lot of national media coming in too, but there'll be a lot of availability. So you'll hear a lot from the Chiefs this week. And then, of course, as always, 41 is the mic. We'll be with you after the AFC Championship game to break everything down. And maybe we will be talking about looking ahead to the Super Bowl, Nick. You never know.
I don't know. We'll find out. It's going to be a long week to get to that moment. That's for sure.
It'll be a long week. You got the road to New Orleans all week, too, on KSHB 41, don't you?
Yeah, Monday through Saturday, 6:30. I'll produce the Wednesday, Thursday, Friday, Saturday one. Then I'll have a pregame show I'll be producing from 10 a.m. to 11 a.m. Then we'll have the show. We'll have a normal newscast at 5. And then once the AFC Championships final, do a post-game show and do that till the wheels fall off till probably 11 p.m. And then depending on how things go, you and I may start the podcast sometime after midnight, Monday morning.
It's my guess is it's going to be a pretty late night. So
win or lose, it's going to be late. It's going to be late night to tape that one.
Well, there'll be a lot of content coming this week, both at KSHB 41, Chiefs Digest, the Chiefs Digest YouTube channel, have interviews with Leo Chanel and Justin Reed up from tonight's game. And we'll have more videos throughout the week, as many we can get up there. So busy week ahead leading up to the AFC Championship game. We hope that you join us all along the way.
You've been listening to 41 is the Mic, presented by KSHB 41, your home of the Chiefs and Chiefs Digest.